So Israel has launched this wave of strikes all across the country into Lebanon. It says targeting Hezbollah militants, the Iranian-backed terror group there. But these strikes have not just hit southern areas or Hezbollah strongholds in Beirut. They have in fact been seen in areas all across Beirut, in places that are not known to be Hezbollah strongholds, in areas that were not under a warning or evacuation notice, and in areas that received no advance warning from Israel. Israel's military says it hit 100 targets in 10 minutes. That's caused a massive amount of destruction and chaos across Lebanon. We were on the streets, our ABC staff were on the streets as those strikes were hitting in Beirut, and they say there was a massive sense of fear and panic. People didn't really understand what was happening, why areas that weren't designated as targets by Israel previously were suddenly being hit. This has been described as the most intensive day of Israeli strikes into Lebanon since this war started nearly 6 weeks ago. At the moment, the death toll, according to Lebanon's civil defence services, sits at more than 250 people. That's in the last few hours alone. Those figures could climb. And this has been labelled by Lebanon's authorities as a massacre and barbaric. And the point where this comes to fruition around the fragility of the ceasefire is whether or not this conflict in Lebanon was included in that ceasefire arrangement that was made between Iran, the US and Israel. Iran says that the US agreed to stop all attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon. It says Israel also agreed to that. And in fact, Pakistan, which was the mediator in this agreement between the three countries, also backed up Iran's claims, saying that Hezbollah attacks were meant to stop, that Israel's attacks into Lebanon were meant to stop as part of this ceasefire agreement. Now, that's been disputed by both the United States President Donald Trump and also by Israel, which says that it will not stop this military campaign into Lebanon. But now there has been this ultimatum that's almost been issued by Iran's Foreign Minister, Abbas. He's posted on social media that the US-Iran ceasefire terms are clear and explicit. The US must choose ceasefire or continued war via Israel. It cannot have both. Essentially now issuing an ultimatum to the United States and Israel that if this war continues against Hezbollah in Lebanon, then the wider conflict will resume.
Ali, there's been a lot of conflicting reports about the Strait of Hormuz overnight. Is it open?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We don't exactly know the answer to it, and I'll explain why. We have been hearing reports from the United States that the strait is open. Of course, if you remember, just 24 hours ago, this was one of the key components of the ceasefire agreement, that the Strait of Hormuz would be reopened for the safe transit of ships to go through that vital waterway. But since we've had these events happen in Lebanon today, Iranian state media is reporting that Iran has now closed the strait again and will not reopen it until the attacks on Hezbollah stop. So it's really difficult to ascertain exactly whether or not the strait is reopened, because we've just heard from the White House in the last few hours that they do consider that the strait is reopened. But I think in either event, even if that waterway is reopened right now, it's not like we're going to see an excessive rush of vessels transiting through that narrow choke point. Logistically, that's just not possible. There are about 800 vessels that are sitting there in the waters around there. There is still an agreement to be reached about whether or not Iran will control those waterways. At the moment, Iran says it will. and suggesting that there'll have to be some sort of either toll arrangement that countries would have to pay shipping fees to Iran to transit through those waterways. It appears at the moment that countries are individually having to try and negotiate with Iran to get their vessels through there, although the United States has also suggested that it might go into a partnership perhaps with Iran, or it might take over the control of the waterways and try to charge tolls there as well. So there is still a hell of a lot to be discussed around the operations of the Strait of Hormuz. At the moment, we don't exactly know if it is open. According to Iran, it is not. According to the US, it is.